but even if it rained normal, it'd probably be okay. Most of the daikon did fine in that area. The thing about daikon radish is it requires a lot of sun. You can't put it in shade or it won't grow. Now I want you to look at the scenery here. That over there in the distance is Table Rock. And my property has an arc shape with several terraces, which I have food growing on, which is now dying due to the cold. So it's a nice view to be able to look at Table Rock from here. Let's see. Isn't that pretty? So at the bottom of this property there's a stream. The slope here is pretty steep, but I created a little niche. As you can see, that's somewhat flat. I can sit down. And here's my table. Okay, so the legend goes about Table Rock, Indian legend, is that the Great Spirit or God came and dined at Table Rock. And my little property is right off of Left Fork Road. So I would like to invite you to join me in this dining of some of the concepts and ideas that I'm going to present here. So let's dine together. Have a seat here at the table with God and dine. Where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am. So yes, we're dining with God together. All right, so a little bit about myself. My name is Louis Gregory Jordan. The name Louis, means light. The term lumen is a measurement of light and radiance and shining forth. Is, the second part, like Israel, is means to strive, to fight. So I intend to strive and to fight for the betterment of the world and the betterment of mankind through the light of reality and the light of knowledge and understanding. And to do this, I'm going to ask that we partake of these concepts with justice and fairness, because one needs to examine knowledge and ideas with a just mind and a fair mind and a sound reason, and weigh them. Does it make sense? Can it be true? Weigh them not against prejudices and biases, but against reality. Justice is absolutely necessary for the world to live in harmony. And so Jordan, my last name, Jor, means I am, or he is. This is Greek, Jor, Jur. Jur means I am. So This is a variation of it, Jor. And Dan in the Hebrew means justice and judgment. And the person in charge of justice is the judge, and they call him the chief justice in charge, and he judges over the proceedings of the court. And so the reason why I want to explain the meaning of my name is because this is important. This is important to have justice and fairness, and that's what I call on everyone to have when examining these concepts. If something doesn't make sense, reject it, and use justice and reason. And middle name is Gregory, because I'm named after Louis Gregory, who had a heart of gold, and who, there's some interesting stuff about Louis Gregory. Very interesting stuff involving his relationship to Aduba. He was a black man, and he lived a long time ago when America was a lot more racist outwardly. And he fought for the truth and for what was right and for racial equality and harmony. He was a good man. So I'm proud of my name. He was a Baha'i. Baha'i, the word Baha'i means follower of the light. Baha means light, glory. Lu means light. I am a Baha'i. And I live in front of Table Rock. Thank the Lord. What a bounty. I mean, I can't afford my taxes, and I don't ask for I don't accept donations. I don't want donations. I don't seek them. So you don't worry about that. I'm not going to ask for anything like that, and I don't want it, really. I intend to work for my living, and I do scrape by my meager existence. Hopefully one day I'll take care of the bills I have. Anyways, I'm poor. Praise the Lord. I exist in radiant poverty, and therefore I'm blessed, because Jesus says that blessed are the poor. He didn't say blessed are the super wealthy. He said it's harder for them to get to heaven than through the eye of a needle. So welcome to this blessing that we're partaking of in the left fork in front of Table Rock, surrounded by mountains. I was born in Suriname. Suriname, Suriname, a surname. If you take away the I, it's surname. A surname is like my last name. You know, it's the family name. And Sir I name is like, if God wants to give me a name, then you put the I in the middle. Sir I name. So I'm not going to get into the whole thing about my name, because it's pretty amazing. It's just amazing. My name means justice. I mean, I'm not going to get into the majorly important stuff about my name. It's just mind-blowing, really mind-blowing. There's an amazing, amazing story behind it. So I might as well tell you part of my story is that I'm a truck driver. I drive 18-wheelers. It's a demanding job, and sometimes I work really hard. Other times I get burnt out and I gotta take some time off and just rest and relax. But one time, it's not really quite rest. I mean, this life is hard. In fact, I have a headache right now, thinking about how hard this life is. Well, you got to see the scenery. So there's no need for all this clarity. Oh, God help me, I get these awful headaches so often. I'm gonna cover up my phone. Don't want it to get damaged, right? So hopefully this headache will clear and I'll be able to communicate with some semblance of clarity. So I was lost at sea for 66 days. I lived on a sailboat named Angel. And I would throw my cast net 100 times. Sometimes I wouldn't pull in anything. I don't know what happened to the food. Just quit showing up. I sailed into the Atlantic Ocean for the first time. It seemed like a good time of year. No hurricanes would catch me off guard. It wasn't like the dead of winter. I mean, winter like really starts getting cold in January, and then this coldness remains through February and through March. And so like the earth acts as a battery in the water, and it gets colder and colder and colder, and it loses more and more heat at the surface. I'm talking about the earth battery and all this mass that's beneath us in the water and in the earth. I don't know so much about the ocean. It's just huge. But the idea is that so winter can get more and more severe as time goes on. And yeah, the coldest month may be January, but it just seems to get more severe. So I was at like the beginning of winter, the coldest month of winter anyways, when I went out. It didn't seem like such a big deal. It seemed quite doable. And I, like personally, I would be more concerned about the hurricanes catching me off guard than the cold, because I had wool clothes to keep me warm. I was used to cold. I often go out without my shirt on in the wintertime to get some sunshine, get some vitamin D. It just feels good. And since I'm not used to indoor heating, being poor, um, I'm somewhat used to cold temperatures. People who are used to indoor heating in South Carolina, they may see it as a necessity to stay indoors in the winter, but I don't. I lived in Alaska with an Eskimo family and a Tlingit Native American family. I lived in a Native American village and tutored children, helped them learn to read. That was what I did after I graduated high school, before I went to college. Anyways, went out into the ocean. I had some stuff for canning fish, some stuff for catching fish. I had a 50-year-old sailboat, big old Alberg 35. They call it 35, but it's really about 34 and a half feet long. An Alberg is just a big old sailboat made of fiberglass. And I didn't know what a nor'easter was. I knew what a small boat advisory was. I listened to the weather radio. Uh, I knew what don't go out into the ocean is, but I looked it up. I looked up the word nor'easter in the Chapman's Boating Encyclopedia. It wasn't there. I couldn't find out what it means at the time. So it seemed like a reasonable gamble. Went out there and it became dark as soon as I went out. There was another boat out, so I figured, I'm not the only one out here. The waves got really enormous, and so I figured I'd need to go to safety, and I went further out, away from land where it would hit a rock or something and might sink. And I wanted to survive, so I went further out into the ocean. Waves got bigger, and they didn't go down. They didn't get small again. And it happened very quickly. That the boat was capsized. It was turned all the way around and disabled. And I broke my shoulder during this first capsize. That is, I couldn't raise my arm without a lot of pain, and I certainly couldn't lift anything heavy. And this was my right arm. And on my collarbone, about right here, it was broken. There wasn't a bone sticking out, but it was broken. And so, storm after storm would come. Apparently, that's what a nor'easter it has something to do with there being a bunch of storms coming, which isn't good on the open ocean. So there were waves the size of mountains, it seemed, all around me, and some would crash around me and crash onto the boat, cause a lot of trouble. And I would constantly get violently jostled around with the boat. Boom! Just like some big monster just picking me up. Bam! Slamming me on the ground, over and over. It was constant. It was constant. Violent, cruel, heartless ocean. Relentless, they call it. It's relentless. It doesn't stop, it doesn't care. It's the ocean. And every now and then, like a big cannonball hitting the side of a house, make this loud booming sound. Boom! Huge loud sound. And it vibrate. Messed up my nerves. Messed with my nerves anyways. It was hard. And I had only one good arm. And you need more than one good arm in such a severe situation. You need one to hold onto the boat with, and you need the other to do whatever you got to do with, such as use the bucket to use the restroom or cook. You can't have only one arm. How are you going to hold on to the boat and cook or use the bathroom at the same time? Because if you're not holding on to the boat, when the boat violently bashes you to one side or the other and throws your body against the wall violently, and it does that all the time, out of nowhere, in any direction, it's unpredictable. You're going to get hurt. I'm going to get hurt again and again and again. So, what could I do, right? I'm on the ocean. These amazing storms would constantly happen. According to CNN sources, I survived over a dozen storms when I was on the ocean. And that was the majority of the time. Because between the storms, it's not like there's calm and easy days. between the major worst of the storms, it's just like variations of storm. It was severe and violent. It wasn't calm and easy. I had one calm and easy period, and that was very short-lived. And then the day I was rescued was relatively easier, which is why. So, I mean, what kind of rescue boat's going to come near a sailboat in the middle of chaotic waves? It's real risky. So, my boat was capsized at least 3 times, and during each time I learned valuable lessons, and they were spiritual lessons often. And this is how I survived, because I had no power. The symbol of power is the arm. Ooh, look, strength, power, right? And mine was broken, and I wasn't going to survive by being the big man, on the ocean, right? I'm 6'4", by the way. I currently weigh about 300 pounds. So, that's not how I survived. No. No. He-Man couldn't have survived that. He-Man could not have survived that without some serious spiritual help. And my strategy for survival that I came up with was, I am going to study the Bible, and I'm going to learn how to pray like Jesus. Because Jesus, when he prayed, he calmed the ocean. He calmed the sea, not the ocean, but the Sea of Galilee anyways. It's a pretty big body of water. And everything stopped. So I figured I need to learn to have faith like Jesus and pray like Jesus Christ and affect reality all around me, nature. And it worked. Here I am. Let's see how our time is doing. Upside down, of course. Alright, we're at 23 minutes, and I have 45%. Fantastic. Quite amazing. Alright, fuzzy like a bear, huh? Alright, so when I came back, oh man, I would love to get into the details of my story. I want you to read my book, hopefully someday. It's called All the Glory Goes to God. It has the details, how it all happened. It describes how, when I prayed, the waves around me became calmer, and that's how I survived. And when I quit praying, even if it was to sleep, the boat was capsized violently, and I got hurt. It was traumatic. It was dramatic. The night and day difference between praying and the effect on the waves. And it also describes the prayer that I said over and over. It's real. God is very, very real. I swear to you, I'm living proof of it. I'm a just measure of proof that God's power to save is absolutely real, and so is the power of the Holy Bible. I did make it through the entire Bible. I love that book. It saved me. And I love Jesus. He died for us. So, that's powerful. That's so powerful. All right. So when I got back, hmm, um, major spiritual events took place. Majorly profound spiritual events took place. I met God. And before meeting him, I had a vision. It showed me the events that would take place. Profound, amazing events. And it said that your name is One-Eyed Buffalo. I didn't expect that to happen. Your name is One-Eyed Buffalo. I have two eyes, right? So that sounds kind of silly, right? But yeah, that's the name that the vision gave me. I respect it. I honor the Great Spirit. Thank you, God. Thank you for this name. I love it. I respect it. Believe me, I don't mean to laugh or belittle it, but it's kind of neat that I have two eyes and at the moment, and my name they gave me is One-Eyed Buffalo, and that's cool. Thanks. So I have more than one name apparently. Louis Jordan, One-Eyed Buffalo. Um, so I have been immersed into a new world. It's the world of the kingdom of God. It's all around me. It's all around everyone. But not everyone can see it. Not everyone's alive to it. For example, there's a dog and there's a human. And the dog is with the human and he sees everything going around. He's living in the same world as the human. But when the human's playing video games and watching the news, he has no idea that there's another world beyond his understanding. It's happening right around him, right before him. The human will, you know, train the dog to go in his cage or train the dog to come. He will make the dog safe, make a fence, provide the dog food. He doesn't know what's going on. He's just happy. He's just provided for. Well, that's kind of like the kingdom. God is around us all the time. God. He's providing for us. He's helping us. Things are going on above our understanding all the time. It's so real. It's so real. And in order to become a member of the kingdom, one has to have true faith. And the quote that Abdul gives is, "As ye have faith, so shall your powers and blessings be." This is the balance. This is the balance. This is the balance. So it's important to be initiated into the true, living, breathing, the live, current covenant of God. And that's what it's all about. That's the most important thing one can achieve today. That's why I'm giving you this. That's why we're sharing this meal together. This is all about the sacred covenant. And in the time of Moses, the covenant was Moses and his teachings. And in the time of Noah, the covenant was Noah and his ark and his teachings and his guiding to God's way. And in the time of Jesus, the covenant was belief in Jesus, the way, the truth. And no one comes to the Father except through him. It's highly, highly important to believe in Jesus, to be grounded in the true covenant of the time in which we live. And how does have one faith? How does one have faith in Jesus? He existed 2,000 years ago, approximately. Who can prove? There are many doubters, there are many scoffers, people who reject him. Who has absolute proof? Why isn't the proof widely available? There are many mysteries, but the proof is there. The proof is so solid. It's as solid as this. It's real. You can find it if you look, but you're not going to learn it from anyone else. You're not going to learn it from the preachers or the books, the sea of books at Barnes and Nobles and best, all of them, all of the libraries, none of them. None of them are going to have what we need. Very few, if any, to solve the riddle of the covenant. The information is in the kingdom of that which is forbidden to be spoken. So, I offer clues, and I'll do my best, and I'll speak vaguely, and you're going to have to do your research, because you can find the truth. Anyone can find the truth. I mean, just about anybody can drive a car, right? So, anybody, just about anybody, can solve the riddle of the covenant and find the promised one for the day and age in which we live. It's right there. And there are there are what seems like insurmountable barriers. It seems like it would take a ridiculous amount of time. It doesn't. A ridiculous amount of work. It doesn't. Anyone can solve it. Anyone can solve the riddle, the mystery. You just have to look. So Jesus said about the end times, when he comes again, he said, I'm going to come like a thief in the night. Be on your watch. Don't let me catch you sleeping. I'm going to come at an hour that you don't know. Don't let me catch you sleeping. Be on your watch. And so how does one be on their watch? I'm going to offer you, I'm going to share with you how. what this is about. After the book of Daniel in the Old Testament is the book of Hosea. And this is a profound, amazing book if you approach it correctly. Hosea says, he says a term. Well, main thing in Hosea is this verse, everyone's probably heard it. My people die for lack of knowledge. My people die for lack of knowledge. Hosea was channeling God. He was being a prophet and speaking God's word. It was coming through him to the people. And one of the things that God said is, my people die for lack of knowledge. And it's not very clear at this point what kind of knowledge he's talking about. Well, what kind of knowledge? Well, if you read the rest of Hosea and look for that word knowledge, you see it's linked to certain concepts. And here's the big concept that this knowledge is linked to. It's linked to these clues. The clues of the grand riddle. The clues of the covenant. That God is going to dwell with man. He's going to live among men. And he tells us when he's going to come. He tells us what's going to happen. And he says that when he comes, people are going to rise up. They're going to rise up. And the dead are going to come to life. And then he tells us when this is going to take place. It's going to take place in 2 years. Well, 2 years from what date? That's important. This is all important. This is all vitally important to know. Well, he gives clues on the starting date as well. He says that, and this is one of the concepts, is one of the key central concepts of Hosea, is that Israel, the kingdom of Israel, is done terribly, and God's going to destroy it. And at one point, Hosea says God's going to destroy Israel in a month. He uses symbolic language, but this is what he's saying. So we can determine what year this prophecy was given in. And then you can determine 2 years from then and know when the promised one will come. When God's going to dwell with people and people are going to rise up and be vitalized. So all we have to do is know the year when Israel was destroyed. And another clue that he gives is at the very beginning of this book, he names some kings. During these kings' reign is when Hosea began, it's when he wrote his prophecy. So he lists some kings down, kings of Israel, kings of Judah. And one of these Jewish kings, he didn't start being a king. He didn't start his reign until, about 725, somewhere around there. That's very fuzzy. It could be 730, it could be something else. But it's around 725 BC. So you look up when Israel was destroyed, and my Smith's Bible Dictionary, Lubet edition, says Israel was destroyed in 721 BC. So it can't be any date before 721 or 725 BC. Now here's the thing. You look up nearly all dictionaries, all Bible dictionaries, every online source, they'll all tell you that Hosea lived about 50 years before that time. And he died 50 years before that time. I mean, he lived 100 to 50 years before 721 BC. And this is an approximation. I'm not using the correct numbers here as far as when he lived and died, but this is the idea. And according to all the sources, there's no way Hosea could have written this prophecy at 721 BC because he lived much earlier. Well, then how did Hosea name the king that started his reign just a few years before 721 BC? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And Daniel predicted this. He said that times would be changed and laws. But we can still figure it out. Because even though the truth is being obfuscated, we can still solve the riddle. Because many very reliable sources still state the truth and we can still access them. And they're usually the older sources. Like Smith's Bible Dictionary has been around since about 1863, maybe even earlier, maybe 1844. But it's been around a long, long time. And the older the source, the better. If you look at Ptolemy's Canon of Kings, well, Ptolemy he lived around 100 AD, 150 AD. And he collected a valuable chronology, or basically what amounts to a calendar of ancient dates, ancient events that are, many of them are biblical. They're describe the events, they're the kings of the Old Testament and what times they had their reign, so we can know very, very surely what the exact date was that a Bible verse may be talking about by referring to Ptolemy's Canon of Kings. They call it a canon because it's like set in stone. It's reliable. And there's so many sources that are not reliable. But if you look at Ptolemy's Canon of Kings, you got a reliable source. That's important to know. You can download it for free. This list of dates. So you have the date that the prophecy began, 721 BC, that Israel would be destroyed in a month. And this is according to the old King James Version translation. If you look at the new King James Version, it's almost too difficult to make sense of. Most of the modern translations the meaning that we need to make sense of it is obfuscated. It's not discernible. I don't know why. Was it with intent? Who knows? But more often than not, the old King James translation can be worked with. I'm not talking about with the weird letters, not the 1611 hardly readable thing, but what's typically called Old King James. So in order to solve this riddle, one has to know what the Bible is referring to when it says that in 2 years the promised one's going to come. So in the book of Revelations, this value 1260 is repeated 7 times in different ways. And in the book of Daniel, the value 1260 is repeated twice in different ways. And in some places it's called it 3.5 times, which is a time times and half a time. In another place it's called 42 months. In another place it's simply stated 1260. In another place it may be called 7.5 years. But it's all referring to the same thing. $12.60. And by using simple math, anyone can solve what a time is, what a year is, what a week is, what a month is. It's simple. A month is, in Bible prophecy, a month is 30 days. And since a day is equal to a year in Bible prophecy, according to Numbers and Ezekiel 4, a day is equal to a year. A day is taken for a year. When it says that a certain event is going to happen in 42 months, it's saying that this event is going to happen in 42 times 30 days, which is 1,260 days. But in reality, it's talking about 1,260 years, because a day is, in prophecy, is equal to a year. So it's necessary, it's vitally essential to do the homework, find the 9 1260s, and solve what a month is, what a week is, what a year is, what a time is. Normally a time is 360. Think about a time around the sun, you got 360 degrees. Or a year, a time around the sun, you have 12 months of 30 days each, approximately. It's kind of simplistic, but that's how the people thought at a time when there were no calendars and there was no exact knowledge of what an exact year is. Fractions, are somewhat relatively a new invention. So, when Hosea said that the promised one's going to come in 2 years, he's saying that he's going to come in 720 years. 720 years from 721 BC, etc., etc. You know exactly when the promised one's going to come. And you look at historically and traditionally what the time of Jesus was when he was born on our calendar. It's so well known, it's so ingrained that they call after that time AD, in the year of our Lord, and before that time BC. And it lines up exactly with reality and what we've always known. It's only recently, in the late 1800s, that everyone's agreed, like all the major scientists and all the major sources have all of a sudden decided that Jesus wasn't really born at that time. Now they're all saying he was born in 4 BC or 6 BC, and they can't agree on it. They don't know. But they've all decided it's something else. So trust the older sources. And if you study Hosea, you'll see Jesus came exactly when Hosea predicted. Over 500 years. 721. Yeah, 721 years. 721 years before Jesus came. Before he was born of a virgin, fulfilling prophecy. So, Hosea was correct. And God has the power to foretell exactly what's going to happen. Not some airy-fairy, subject to interpretation thing. Numbers are exact. There are at least 18 different prophecies like this in the Bible that are so exact with numbers. And they all use the same system. You got to know this system. And if you study this one prophecy, you'll know the system. That a year is talking about 360 years. A month is talking about 30 years. A week is talking about 7 years. That kind of thing. And God has many instances where he gives exact prophecies. Gives the exact year when the promised one will come. So this is one important concept to get. And you can get it easily. It doesn't take long to figure out. Isn't this beautiful? This is the supper of God. We're sitting at Table Rock, partaking in this amazing supper that gives faith. You can know beyond a shadow of a doubt, Jesus is the promised one. He fulfilled this prophecy. It's well known. And the thing is, the more close to today that we get for deciphering when the promised one will come and who he is, we can have even more faith in God. I mean, because trying to prove something that happened 2,000 years ago when Jesus came, well, it's not as believable as proving what's provable now, today, very clearly. Let's check the video here, see what's going on. Still recording. 52 minutes. Whew. So, I love these leaves falling all around. It reminds me of the Matrix. When the green letters and numbers fall down the screen. It's like reality being created before our eyes. It happens all the time. God is with us. It's such a special place. So, the most important thing is discerning who the promised one is of today. And there's so much evidence in the Bible. And it's a big book. Look. Huge. The Bible is big. And it's not simple. It's not easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just give some examples of how these things work and what they say. So I just given the first example. That's in Hosea. The starting point wasn't just any old event. It wasn't just some king invading another kingdom, which happens a million times, the creation of the world. Not some ordinary event. This is the kingdom of Israel, God's people. For the first time, utterly destroyed. Never, you know, never to exist again quite the same, shall we say. the This is a major event in the world of religion. The kingdom of Israel was destroyed for hundreds and hundreds of years. At least 2,500 years. More than that. It was gone. And the kingdom of Judah, its sister kingdom, its neighbor, yeah, it existed for a little while longer. Okay? But and we're not going to go into that right now. The thing is, this is a significant, it's a major, it's important, it matters. So this is the pattern here we got to get. This is a majorly important, significant event in the world of religion. That's the starting point, the foundation. And then it says, oh, God's going to come in 2 years, be among men, dwell among men. This is in Hosea. So you have a starting point and you have an end point, and you can calculate it. And it comes to, at the very end of 1 BC, between the 1 AD and the 1 BC point, around there, exactly as history has always taught until recently. So this is just one aspect. That is, it's one describing factor of the promised one. There are others, many others. In some places, okay, well, first of all, let's get into the rest of Hosea, because Hosea says people are going to rise up and the dead are going to come back to life when this promised one comes. If there were people who rose up into the air and the dead came out of the graves when Jesus was born, why doesn't the Bible write about it? Why didn't anybody know about it? I think that would be a major event that would be recorded in history, in the historical record. Well, that didn't happen. But what did happen is that those who understood prophecy, those who did their research, who were watching prophecy, watching to understand it, they understood that this is the time. They understood that the promised one's going to appear at this time. And they had faith. And they rose up in their faith into the heaven of understanding and belief. Especially when they heard that a virgin conceived a child. The other prophecy that's well known at that exact time. Of course, they had faith. And of course, they rose from the dead of being a non-believer into the living of being a believer. And they had deep faith. That's how they rose from the dead. They're like, wow, this prophecy really came true. The exact year. So in the book of Hosea, when it describes this great knowledge that allows the believers to live, my people die from lack of knowledge. This is the knowledge. When these links to the word knowledge appear later that describe